Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another of the JBDC Virtual Biz Zone. My name is Sansia Campbell, and I am the Partnerships and Communications Officer here at the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. I want to make a few apologies before we begin. Firstly, I apologize for the fact that I do not have a camera this morning. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, and as such, I'm unable to open my video. I also want to apologize on behalf of our presenter who is not feeling so well, but he decided, this is too important. And so he's going to join and make the presentation. Now, as you would be aware, we are starting a new series. Every time you see us, we do a series and then we take a break and come back again. So we are going to be focusing on our smart agro processing series over the next two presentations. So we start today with strategic modernization through technology and financing. And as I said, we are focused on agro-processing. Our presenter for this morning is Mr. Colin Porter, and he is the Technical Services Manager here at the Jamaica Business Development Corporation. He has quite a bit of knowledge, and he's going to be sharing with us all the different aspects that can support your agro-processing business. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to Colin, and he will take you through the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sansa, and a very good morning to everyone. I'm just going to call up my screen. And, right, let me get on the correct mode here. Right, so thank you for that introduction. And yes, it's a pleasure being here, although really I'm supposed to be kicking back and recovering from a terrible bout of influenza that's been going around. So hope and I pray that no one gets it because trust me, it's not a nice feeling, but we are here. So bear with me if I'm struggling a little this morning, but I'll do my best to ensure that we have a nice robust session and we can impart some information. And hopefully I probably can learn something from you as well, the participants. So as Sansa mentioned, we are talking this morning about strategic modernization through technology and finance. And I'm just going to take you through a few things which I would consider to be reminders for you, for some of you at least. You may already know some of this stuff, but just to reinforce it and put it in a different context for you as the based on where we are at in Jamaica and what the industry is like and where the trends are moving. So this morning's presentation, I'm gonna look at these particular areas. First, before we can strategize to modernize, we have to know where we are now. So just want to talk a little bit about where we are today. Then we look at these specific areas which have to do with your everyday operations. But since we're focusing on modernization today, we look at it in the context of how you can upgrade your business operations. Everyone knows that energy and infrastructure is very important today. We also what happened on Friday, right? We'll talk about our production systems. Digitization in this modern world is very critical. And then we speak about some financial strategies. We're not going give your money, but we're talking about some strategies that you can ensure that your operations remain sustainable. So let's start with our current situation where we are today, right? Um, and we know that change and improvement is urgent, right? We see it happen over the last few years, whether it is just because of changing technology or changing our climatic conditions and how it affects our supply chains and so on. We know that change is necessary. So let's take a snapshot and see where we are now. And as it says here, and we know that you there, you know that agro-processing is very critical to our nation's economy. When you look at it from every aspect, from food security, from contribution to the GDP, and everything, it is critical. And obviously, we have a significant number of agro-processors who fall under the MSME umbrella. But sadly, a lot of operations still are operating at what I call a disadvantage. We're using outdated or old equipment, which aren't the most efficient, or processes are manual. We don't have stable financial structures that can allow us to scale and be more competitive. And a statistic here which says that, and to be honest, I haven't validated this information when I researched, but it says that between 20 to 40% of raw material value is being lost due to inefficient handling and processing methods. Now, you can tell me if that sounds realistic in your own operations, because that's a lot. Imagine losing up to 40% of your raw material at the end of the day, right? That is money down the drain. Of course, we have other challenges, including high input costs, whether it is energy, raw materials, and I know raw materials are a big headache because you face the challenge of fluctuating prices and availability during certain times, certain seasons, as we may call them. And that's a big challenge. How can we mitigate such gaps? Um, we face the challenge of limited market access, whether it is through weak branding or compliance, which prevents us from accessing bigger markets, export markets, but even some local markets, right? We need to ensure that our branding, which stands up and reflects our product, is up to par so that we can attract larger markets. And of course, there is technology gap. And this cuts across the board for many SMEs, regardless of what sector you're in. But certainly from the agro-processing side, we know that this is an era of opportunity for us to take advantage of some of the new technologies coming out and digital tools. JBDC has been involved in the Digital Jamaica program, where we're equipping MSMEs how to digitalize, and transform digitally, right? So that we can operate in most efficient ways using some of the tools which are available. So this slide kind of summarizes a little bit of some of the key challenges we just spoke about, but just to reiterate again, aging equipment. Now, technically speaking, and as an engineer, we'll tell you a very old piece of equipment can still operate efficiently and still be very productive, but it requires maintenance. But we all know that automation is an important part of processing now, and having equipment which are a lot more capable, a lot more automated, um, uses energy more efficiently, and so on, is desirable. Because we find that when we have these aging equipment, yes, they can be maintained to operate, but the cost of maintenance now starts to rise, and it affects product quality, it affects output, and ultimately it affects the sustainability and viability of your business. Then, of course, energy vulnerability is something I don't need to talk about at all. We know it is a situation that affects us all, whether it is unreliable grid power, whether it's the cost of electricity. These tend to inflate our overheads. It affects production, it interrupts production, and so on. And later on, we'll talk about some of these in detail in terms of what are the alternatives, which we know a lot of alternatives are available right now. Another key area for our agro-processing MSMEs has to do with compliance or compliance readiness. We see persons struggle to meet certain basic quality standards which are required for retail and export markets, right? The knowledge and application of GMPs at the very minimal, good manufacturing practices. And then we talk about HACCP or any other compliance standard out there required for international markets are very important. So we have to find a way as producers to ensure that we can be compliant and be compliant, what I call effortlessly, and we'll talk about that some more. And of course, the elephant in the room, finance access barriers. We know the challenges of getting financing to grow our businesses, whether we don't have enough collateral based on what the lender is asking for, or business records aren't up to date, and we have to make a lot of effort to get our records up to date just so we can approach a financer. Um, and being adequately financially literate are some of the challenges. Don't mean you don't understand basic accounts or anything, but to put that all together, to be able to articulate and understand some of the terms and things in terms of what financing is available and which is best suited for you is something that challenges a lot of MSMEs. Excuse me. Right. So those are things that we see happening on the ground right now. Now let's talk about solutions and opportunities. So first, we're going to talk about the core of it all, upgrading your business operations, right? Smarter processes, better systems, these contribute to the foundation of sustainable growth. So we're going to talk about some of these now, and these are often things that we tend to look over, not pay much attention to, because business have to run, and we do it intuitively. Now, before you start thinking about going digital and getting all the automated equipment and so on, first you need to map and understand your current operations from end to end. From someone calls and places an interest in buying some of your products or distributing your products, to when the raw materials come in, you process it, you do everything in between, get it packaged, get it ready for the market, commercialize it, the logistics of shipping, getting it into the hands of your customer, getting paid for it, and doing it all over again. You need to understand that very clearly in your business. A lot of times when we speak to MSMEs, yeah, they're doing stuff, but they're not aware of certain little details that could help to enhance them. So in industrial engineering or production engineering, we have some basic tools that we use. And I just pointed out three of them here, which are value stream mapping. Now, in value stream mapping, what it does, it identifies each step within your process from raw materials to finished product. And it looks for those areas which add zero value that you can do without, because time wasting. And if something don't add value, you can get rid of it, right? Without disrupting your process. Sometimes some of these zero value steps actually contribute to you not getting your product out. So, and it could be simple things. You're in your facility and you realize that when your raw material supplier delivers a batch of raw material inputs, you have to hire an extra person, spend a half a day or whatever the period of time for them just to sort out and throw out maybe some bad ones or some blemish or some flaw or do something that could have been avoided in the facility. So you may say to your supplier, listen, you supply me with that, but you need to ensure that you are not sending me any bad things in the batch. You need to pick them out. I'm only paying for those which are usable, and come to some arrangement where they provide you with these raw materials in a state that eliminates the need for you to do some of these unnecessary tasks just to get it prepared for processing. right? So that's just a crude example. There you can think of any other thing that you think you're doing. And sometimes, you don't say, why am I wasting time doing this? It doesn't have to be on the production floor either. It could be part of your record keeping thing or part of your office operations. Why am I doing this? Why I don't like doing this task? Every time I have to sit down and spend 3 hours doing all of this, there must be a better way to do it or a shorter way without compromising the quality. Then there is bottleneck analysis. This is where you pinpoint now where sections of your production process slows or fails, right? And some may be unavoidable, like if you're boiling some fruits or some materials because you're making sauces. Yeah, if the process calls for boiling it for a certain number of hours, then you have to do that. But what can you do in the meanwhile? Say, don't just sit down and wait until this particular step in the process is completed. What other productive things can happen in parallel? So you shorten that bottleneck or you remove that bottleneck as a bottleneck and you do other activities to keep the process going. And waste identification, which comes a little bit out of the value stream mapping, but this now is where you do the actual activity of reducing rework, reducing spoilage, and having excess inventory, because yes, inventory is seen as waste. You produce something and it sits on the shelf and there is no order for it. Depending on your overall business model, if you have no distributor ready to take it off your hands in the next week or two, then it can be considered waste. If you have finished product sitting on a shelf for 4 weeks, don't have no buyer yet, then you need to eliminate that. Right? I know it's challenging here in Jamaica to operate off a full just-in-time situation, but we try to strike a balance where we can. And our engineering team at JBDC can help you in these areas to help to identify them, refine them, and make recommendations for improvement. And so you find that from the outset, doing some simple um, activities like these, you can find some efficiency gain in your process and not yet spend a dollar on equipment or anything else. These are just practices and activities which are on the floor in front of you right now, but it's just for you to step back, critically analyze them, look at where the deficiencies are, and implement changes so you can be more efficient. Then on the other side, there are certain other things now which help you to support once you have identified these challenges and these bottlenecks and so on. So we're going to talk about some. I already touched a little bit about inventory being waste, but you still need inventory and you need to manage your inventory because you have different types of inventory, your raw materials, your packaging, and your finished goods, right? So you need to manage these as well. We know the real challenge of raw materials and packaging in the agro-processing sector. The uncertainty of delivery of certain raw materials, the unavailability of packaging very quickly when you need it, right, are some of the two biggest pain points when it comes to inventory management. How do we address those? Yes, you want to minimize inventory, but can you have, whether you have it yourself or with your supplier, create a stockpile of some partially processed ingredient or input that may not lose its quality if stored for a particular period of time, which is longer than normal, so that you put in some buffer against having stockouts with your raw material. Packaging, can you look at directly importing your own packaging solutions? No, because the local suppliers may have a challenge in supplying you the quantity, the cost, the particular type of packaging that you need. Looking at things like that. And it's much easier now, which I'll talk about some more later, in terms of accessing inputs for your system. So just wanted to mention that about inventory since we were speaking about it before. Now, the other area which is very, very key is about having developed a set of standard operating procedures or SOPs. And when we talk about developing them, we're talking about documenting them very clearly as well. A lot of us, as small processors, small manufacturers, we ourselves know everything from start to end. We can tell it to you backwards how to do this, what goes here, what goes next, da 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 da. But you have other people in your system, and you may just bring on somebody to help you with the processing or the packaging, and you tell them, okay, you do this, blah 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 blah. You tell them verbally and leave them at it. They're not going to retain that very quickly in a lot of cases, and they end up doing variations of it, and it messes up your whole operation. So some of the stuff you're doing earlier through value stream mapping and waste reduction and so on, all that is wiped out because people aren't adhering to what is said. So it's important to document every critical task so that quality remains consistent, regardless who is on the floor that day doing that particular um, task or activity. So no matter who comes in, you give them a document, step one, step two, step three, step four. This is how it's done. It's laid out in a particular way. And of course, you have to review from time to time your SOPs. As you find more efficient ways to do things, you upgrade it. So you don't want to set up an SOP today, document it today. 2 years down the road, you're still using it, but you have changed the process totally. So it is important that these are also updated and reviewed, audited every now and again, and so on. And it doesn't have to be a complex thing. As I say, just document what the process is, steps one, two, three, four. Of course, different procedures will require different levels of documentation, but it's important to have those down. Then sticking with quality, a key part of our systems is quality control checkpoints, right? And I'm sure some of you in here would have done HACCP already, and you know how critical that is. But at each step along the production line, you want to have some inspection checks, right? To ensure that you're not passing bad quality down the line into your finished product, and then you have to dispose of everything. So each stage from your raw material comes in, you do your inspection, you make your selection and remove any bad inputs. You look at your packaging, ensuring that all the packaging solutions are meeting the requirements. And then when you process, so you may want to have some of your tools on hand, your pH meter or your bricks meter, and you check little things like that down the line. We're not asking to have a big lab now to do more in-depth tests, right? But you need to maintain quality. And I'll tie it back to the SOP. These quality checks should be a part of some of your SOPs so that, again, the people who are assisting you with production, they are aware of what these quality markers are or these quality standards. So they become the one to do the inspection themselves and not waiting on you to come and go over someone's shoulder to say, oh, you're not doing this properly or this look like it off. They themselves should be invested and equipped to do these quality checks yourselves. Of course, you're still going to check at the end of the line, but you want to ensure it becomes embedded and becomes a cultural practice for these checks to be done on a regular basis, which leads to number four, staff training program, invest in your team. Now, some people say, boy, I'm not going to invest in training nobody, because as soon as you train them, they're gone. Yes, but at the same time, if you don't train them, you have very little control over quality in your operations, right? Now, the training doesn't have to be anything exorbitant or thing either. You will, of course, you determine who gets what type of training, but every new person coming in, even if they're just
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So Colin has experienced one of the things that he was just talking about, the uncertainty in our power grid. So he is trying to see if he can get back on using hotspot. But in the meantime, I know you must have learned something. Anybody want to share any of the experiences that they have been having in their facilities as it relates to production? No hands. Has the presentation been going well? Are you getting any information from it? Anything new that you see that you can use in your facilities?
I guess those with practical and already established uh, manufacturing processes, I'm sure
Right,
that they have learned, or even I not really learned, but I think they see the reason why we need to retain certain things as a follow up to ensure that all the processes are dated and well written, because with the today inspections, and if you pass in at certain certification that would require for sure, to present, there
right,
is a more tightening of the processes in terms of how the process is done, from where your suppliers are, whether or not they're doing their part. So it's basically a give and take. I mean, it's a lot of component that before it might maybe before it was overlooked, and
uh-huh,
now it is necessity in order to progress into the future. Otherwise, there is no compliance.
right. Do you have a facility, sir? I'm not sure of the pronunciation of
Yeah,
your name. Do you have a
my name
product?
is Max in Losset. No, I'm actually in the process of obtaining certain um,
Your audio is in and out, so I'm
facilities.
not hearing you so well.
Yeah, I'm in the process of obtaining a facility right now, so therefore this will allow me to see what is compliance is done by engineer, with
Right.
documentation like yours. That's all. It's just a basic recommendation guidance. How to,
Okay, so
how
this
to
is really just
inspect.
information gathering for you. That's what you're saying.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know
Okay,
as
great.
for the other members who is on this chat, whether or not they are already in processes or try to understand the processes, how to be done. But we are more and more become international companies, so therefore there's a lot of regulations if we're seeking like exportation of our products abroad and so on, or even internally,
Okay.
which is good because the compliance needs to be done. You would like to present to the people product that is certified internationally.
Just in context of what President Trump has said about Somalia, it's called Somalia's garbage. He's suggested that they're criminal.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, no, I said what I want.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Losiev. Um, there were a couple of other microphones open. Angelita, did you want to say something? Angelita Morgan.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yes, I was saying that most of us, the challenge is packaging. We
Right.
cannot having a uniform sort of thing that if you're doing wines, if you're doing sauces, the same bottles are available to us.
Okay.
And
So, Colin would have been ideal for you to speak to about this. The fact is that we have, well, our incubator and resource center on Marcus Garvey Drive, and we do assist persons in identifying packaging for their products. There are times that these have to be sourced overseas because, as you rightly say, almost every jam or jelly is in the same jam or jelly bottle. And
Yes,
sometimes it's hard to differentiate one from another and a lot of people really not reading the labels, you know what I mean? So
truly, yes.
right. I'm really hoping that he gets to come back on, because I really want him to complete what he's saying, what he was presenting. All right, thanks for sharing that, Angelita. There was another
But
person, Marjorie. You had your I see you have your camera on. Did you have something you wanted to say? Let me go ahead and unmute you. You have to press the unmute. Right, there you go.
Yes, I have a business, breadfruit processing,
Right,
located in St. Thomas.
right,
We have been hit twice by the two hurricanes, Beryl and also Melissa. Because of
right.
the fact that we've been hit so hard, the breadfruit trees we have not been able to recover from the hit from the trees being blown down and destroyed. It's going to take us like 2 more years before we can even start up again to say that we can even start processing breadfruit again. And with the
Mm-hmm.
tariff that we were hit by the United States, the 10% tariff, which has slowed down the sale of the product, it has really put a damper on things for us. Right now, we are leasing the property and we are in trouble right now trying to pay the rent on the property. And also, we have a lot of bags and boxes that is just sitting there and not being able to use because, like I said, no production is going on. We try to reach out to the banks and what have you to help us, and nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what they're going to do as far as helping small businesses like myself to get back on our feet.
Do you have an idea what else you would do with the property aside from leasing it, since it is that the breadfruit trees are going to take 2 years? Is there
Mhm.
something else that you have in mind?
Well, we have been in this business for a very long time.
Right.
So we have tried other product like yams. We have tried, one person just mentioned to us about doing kalaloo. And I, we have tried quite a few products. Breadfruit is the main one that has really been helping us to keep us in business.
Okay. So there is nothing that you have in mind outside of breadfruit then?
That can really put us on the market because that's the top seller. The other
Okay.
products, the other products do sell, but it's not as much as what the breadfruit has been doing for us over the years. It has been our top seller and it is one to keep us in business.
Okay. It would be helpful if you came in and speak with one of our business development officers. We have an office in St. Thomas at
Mm-hmm.
49 Queen Street.
Okay.
You can speak with Selena White. Let me give you a number for her.
Hold on, let me write it down.
Yeah. Just have a conversation with Selena and see what kind of I'm sorry, it's not Selena White, it's Selena Thomas. Selena White your name? Yes, Selena White. Sorry about that. Her number is
Go ahead.
1 second, please. Um 1 second.
Well, Sensei is looking, just to let you know, I'm back.
I'm so happy you're back,
Yeah,
Colin.
keep a good man down. Yeah, I have to call him back up power. Same thing I'm talking about. I have to plug in
All
back
right.
into generator.
Miss Willis, I'm gonna message you. I'm
Wills,
gonna send you
Wills, Wills,
Wills, I'm
ma'am,
sorry.
Wills.
I'm so sorry, Miss Wills. I'm gonna send you
Okay.
a message, a private message. All right.
Okay.
I'm gonna hand back over to Colin, and then I'll send you a private message.
All right, then. Thank you.
And now my camera is so out of focus, I don't know what's happening. But please ignore my face for a moment and just hear what I have to say until it gets back in focus. Yeah, sorry about that a while ago. Just as we're talking about having reliable energy systems, which I don't even get in detail yet, bam, there went my power. So I had to call for backup. Right. So let me just jump right into it and hope my backup lasts through the session. So we just spoke about training of your staff, ensure that everybody is knowledgeable about not just what they do technically, but about the operations of your business, especially area that they're involved in, right? And then you can look at other forms of training which will add more value to your personnel as you um, scale the business and so on, right? So let me jump to the next slide. So in a sense now for your operations upgrade, you want to move from reactive to proactive management. Like I had to be reactive a while ago, wasn't proactive in that ensuring that my little backup battery generator was already online before this happened and had to go put it online. So unfortunately, I had to be reactive a while ago. And we want to move away from that, the firefighting issues as they arise and things. And in order to move from reactive to proactive, you have to be systematic at the bigger scale. Have your documented processes, have your regular monitoring, ensuring that everyone adheres to the system and know their role within the system so that when issues arise, they can be resolved very quickly, but also so that certain proactive behavior now, which are data-driven decisions and continuous improvement, will happen that you're continuously just making things better rather than trying to correct all the errors which seem to be happening, right? So that's our goal when we speak about operations upgrade, right? Now, and it's important now for you to be able to measure. So, you know, what it says about being proactive is about data-driven decisions and continuous improvement. So you need to have, in addition to your standard operating procedures and your SOPs, should also articulate this, that you collect production information, maintenance or downtime information. So you get a feel how long will my equipment most likely run before I need to change out some part out of it. When was the last time I serviced this piece of machinery that so that the motor don't burn out, to use a simple example. Or, you know, little things like that. You have a refrigerator or a freezer there. Check the gas in the system, make sure it's cooling properly. Um, put them on some UPS or surge protector. So when JPS come and bam, it don't knock it out and mash up your equipment, right? So you want to be able to put things like that so you can be less reactive, more proactive, and be more efficient in your operation. All right, perfect timing. We're talking about now energy infrastructure and resilience. These are words I've been hearing since last year a lot um, on the lips of many persons at different levels, including us in the manufacturing sector, including us in the agro-processing sector. How can we be more, make our businesses more resilient? We're talking about reliable, affordable energy to ensure smooth operations, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about that. Now, energy has to be a strategic priority for you in your business. Off the bat, we already are dealing with some of the highest electricity costs in the world, much less the Caribbean, right? For the typical agroprocessor, it can represent maybe up to 25% of your total production cost, and which is a lot, right? So that means already some of the markup you're putting on going to be 25% off the bat just to produce, just to turn on your equipment. Don't include raw material, don't include labor, don't include packaging, don't include your marketing budget or any other operations aspect. Unreliable supply can also cause damage to your equipment, can cause production losses, and it can lead to food safety risks. So if your raw materials aren't being properly cooled, then they're at risk of spoiling, and you probably don't want to discard it because it don't gone off too bad yet, but you include it in the makeup of your product. So investing in energy resilience is not just an environmental choice, but it is a direct cost reduction and competitiveness strategy. Now, one of the things that we always encourage persons to not do, or even if you do, we know there's a lot of direction now to investing in solar power or some other alternative form of energy to get you off the grid. But you don't just jump and do that. So we suggest you start by doing an energy audit. And there are certified auditors out there. JBDC can assist in that regard as well. These trained experts now will help you to identify the biggest energy drains in your system and what you can do to um, remedy these situations. There is what is called an energy conservation pyramid, which from bottom up gives you the level of um, or the approach one should take. At the very bottom, obviously, is assessment, so you know what you have and what is happening. Then we always encourage persons to start the practice of energy conservation first. What is energy conservation? Simply cutting back. You're in a room and the light is on and the AC is on and nobody not in there, turn them off. You start up a machine and it's not being used, providing it doesn't require a long startup time or warm up time, turn off the machine. Right? You have water running continuously without it washing or doing anything and not catching any going down the drain. It's not electricity, but is a waste and it contributes to energy usage somewhere else down the line. So I want to get into the habit of conversation. Train people, train yourself to turn off lights, turn off equipment, turn off any powered device that doesn't need to be plugged into your outlets at any particular time and turn them on only when ready for use. That's energy conservation. Once you have gotten into that practice and gotten those habits down, then we want to look at energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is where you use as little energy as is needed to carry out a particular thing. So here now it may require a little bit more investment, and energy conservation also doesn't cost you a cent. It just costs awareness. Energy efficiency is where now you start changing out your bulbs to LED bulbs, energy saving bulbs, putting in things like skylights or windows with open glass so you get more natural light in. Um, Switching over your motors to um, oh gosh, my poor brain. What the motor's name again? Inverter type motors, and you hear the pitching inverter ACs and so on. That's a type of technology which doesn't consume as much energy as the older ones, right? And looking at any other equipment you may have a fairly big process and you have a boiler, and you have to turn on boiler to create steam to cook your stuff. Ensure that your boiler is properly maintained and is very efficient. It's not losing any steam that isn't reaching, producing steam that isn't reaching to the intended vessel, right? So you want to do all of those. And then at the top of the pyramid now is where we recommend the use of renewable energy to either replace or supplement what you have. So this is where now the popular choice of having solar panels and solar inverters and backup batteries and so on come into place. And we recommend that this is done because just so, um, solar energy may mask some of the inefficiencies you have in your system. And yes, you may say solar cheap and it not cost the money, so what? It There's a cost to maintain your solar system. The batteries have lifespans, and so still need to maintain them. So you still need to ensure that conservation is a daily practice. You need to ensure that you constantly replace your equipment with more energy efficient type equipment. So now you're going to have to get in the habit of looking at the what they call the nameplate on your machines that have the voltage rating and the amperage and all of that kind of thing, and have some technically competent person, an electrician or someone, advise you whether or not this particular piece of equipment is suitable and is energy efficient while not compromising on the performance of the piece of equipment. So this is something we recommend that you do once looking at different strategies for your energy management. So, like I mentioned, the popular choice now is a solar photovoltaic system where you have the solar panels placed somewhere that pulls in thing, and then you have battery storage to ensure that you have power in reserve and so on. Of course, there are peculiarities with this where you can have what they call grid tie systems, or you're totally standalone. With a grid tie system, you share with JPS, so you use JPS power on the normal conditions, and when they are not available, then you switch over to yours. So we'll get into the deeper part in terms of how much JPS pay for excess power and all that kind of thing. Suffice to say, though, that even with prices coming down and more options available, going solar is typically a huge investment, especially when you do the calculation and you say how much kilowatts you may need to keep your facility up and running, then the cost may be very, very high. And of course, while it doesn't need a lot of maintenance, like if you had a diesel generator or so on, there is still a cost to maintain this. What those typical operating costs are very low to negligible. It's just the investment cost up front, which typically is fairly high. But it is important that you develop an energy strategy to ensure you bring your costs down. But remember, from the pyramid, that you have to practice conservation, look at being energy efficient, and then you put your alternative system in place on top of that. So this is pretty much the pathways I'm recommending to you, that you conduct the audit, identify the inefficiencies, and prioritize quick wins like LED lighting and equipment scheduling as well. When do you turn on the equipment versus when you don't have it on and running? Then you want to upgrade the high consumption equipment first. You want to prioritize what can be upgraded, what can be replaced first. And these typically start with your aging refrigeration systems, which are normally not very efficient, motors and dryers, or any other thing that uses um, or consumes a lot of energy. You want to replace them with energy efficient alternatives. And we'll talk later on, we'll talk about financing. We can see what possible options are there, because I mean, say, yeah, Mr. Porter can go and talk, you know how much money for some of the machine here. but we're going to talk about that. And of course, at the top of it is to install your renewable system panel of solar photovoltaic, which here it says can cut your energy bills by up to 60%. And it insulates your operation from grid disruptions like I had earlier a while ago, so that you can continuously flow and you can satisfy your production needs. Now, anywhere you can have a 60% reduction, and this is at the top end of the scale, even if at the lower end you reduce by 30, 40%, that is a big win, right? And beauty about these solar PV systems is that they're scalable. So you could start with having your support offices and so on being powered by solar. And as you move up, because you know your equipment draws a lot of power and needs some really big systems, but if you take all of your smaller electrical devices and lighting and your ACs off the grid and you do that by solar, that is also a saving that you can look. And as you scale up, you look at how much capacity you put back in to cover your other equipment. So that's another strategy that you would look for. So rolling through very quickly, and after this, I know we had a power cut. I don't know if persons want to break or you want to allow anybody to ask questions now or what. I'll stand guided by you.
We can
Um,
we can take the questions when you are through, Colin.
okay, no problem. Right. So
All
please
right.
use your questions, everyone, and think. So let's continue. Right. So we talk about your operations and realize how systematic we are being. Get your operations, your general business operations, your production operations in order. Put in your SOPs, look at your quality systems, put things in place, have your trained and knowledgeable staff in the facility. Then now we look at energy, how we can minimize the usage of energy or use energy more efficiently, and so on, right? These are fundamental things you need to do. We don't start make no product yet, right? This is just everyday mindset change um, activities that we're suggesting. So now we're going to talk about our production systems. Modern equipment and smarter processing workflows will translate directly into better products and higher margins, right? And less waste, like we spoke about earlier. So, what we're talking about here now, let's move to the next slide. So, what are some of the areas in which we can modernize the production floor, right? And summarize into three category of areas, three what they call we're calling key investment areas, is having some automation added to your production line, whether it is filling and packaging or mixing or any other thing. It depends on your scale, it depends on your product, depends on your ability to access these equipment. But certainly you want to start looking at automating some aspects. It will reduce costs, yes. Don't mean you have to fire nobody now, but it reduces your labor cost and how you allocate your labor, and it will improve consistency, right? Once equipment are programmed and set, even and you have automated equipment that yes still requires some human intervention, but that human intervention becomes less now in terms of your reliance on it to ensure consistency. Becomes a more monitoring and just pushing a couple of buttons and ensuring that the machine doesn't go haywire, kind of thing. Obviously, and I would hope everyone here knows in agro processing already have their stainless steel equipment, right, which meets food safety standards and extends product shelf life, but also the shelf life of the equipment, right? So having the appropriate type of equipment, we have it on the modernization, but it really is a standard practice in the industry. Having those stainless steel equipment now fitted with certain type of things, depending on what you're doing in terms of valves or covers or something to monitor what happens inside those equipment is also necessary. And another area which we highly recommend is to have some kind of what is called cold chain infrastructure. This is your ability to keep your products at a particular temperature. Some products requires a lower than ambient temperature, refrigerated storage, and the way in which they are transported to your distributors and so on, so that you reduce the risk of spoilage if they are not kept at the required temperature, right? So depending on what you're doing, you may need it. If you're doing some other type of products, you may not need this, but you certainly want to look at ways in which and technology which can help to reduce any spoilage of your finished product, right? It could be an air-conditioned room when we talk about refrigerated storage, or it could be a cold room. Of course, equipment or modernizing, we look at also controlled drying and pasteurization of products, depending on what the type of products are as well, to ensure that product quality is met and standardized across batches. So it's using, these are just examples of technologies that can be used. And later I'm going to talk about support that JBDC and through an international donor agency and even our ministry, what role we play in there. And now would be a good time for me to just pause and put a plug for the program that our parent ministry, Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, along with Customs Agency has. I'm sure by now everybody in the room should hear about it. The Productive Input Relief program that allows you waivers on discounts and certain other import costs to bring in equipment, packaging material, and some raw material for your business, right? So I know persons have taken advantage of it and have brought in equipment to upgrade their facilities and so on. So that's a good program to have. We can share more about that later on during the question and answer session. Now, the other area on the production floor, once you have your equipment in, and we spoke about some of this on the general operations improvement, but on the floor now is ensuring that you meet the requirements of certain bodies and that you remain compliant. HACCP implementation is highly recommended for all processors. This is a hazard analysis critical control points certification, because a lot of your distributors in certain markets, including export markets, but even including local markets, will require for you to have some kind of certification. And I recommend this one as the most basic one to have. And there are opportunities right here locally to get trained in HACCP and to implement HACCP systems. And HACCP is about having clean facilities and documented procedures. So all the SOPs we spoke about are precursor to HACCP. You don't need HACCP to have your document procedures, but it is a critical component of HACCP certification. And here you get into more technical procedures being documented, your production records, etc., being documented, and so on, right? Of course, locally, you know that there is a Bureau of Standards which plays a role to align um, standards for labeling, nutritional content, product safety, and so on. So the BSG plays a role in even assessing and certifying your facility to ensure that you meet all of the requirements of GMPs, HACCP, or whichever other standard they use as their benchmark. And you know that your product has to be tested by the Bureau before it goes on the shelf. So they will do their various microbiological tests to ensure that the product is safe. They will need to assess your label to ensure that it properly reflects what you are purveying to people and that what is in the packaging matches up with what is being communicated on the label. And of course, the role of the nutritional panel has become more important. So we are seeing that on just about every product now. And the Bureau can assist you with developing your nutritional panel and so on to ensure that your product meets the requirements for the market and reduces the risk to you should something, a consumer use your product and cause some harm. Then you want to know that you have some kind of backup to show that you have systems in place. From time to time, we hear about recalls. Can't remember, I'm not going to call the name of the product, but there was a recall recently for a particular product. And once you have recall, certain things will be triggered, including traceability. So let's say for some reason you put a product out there and a particular batch goes bad, right? And someone consumes it or opens it and realize, boy, something right with this. And then the Bureau gets involved and calls a recall. Based on your batch number, we should be able to trace all the way back to the point of your accessing your raw materials and where that raw material came from and what happened on that day during production that probably could have caused something to go awry that would have compromised your product. So this is what the documentation does. So your production record, your delivery record, your receipt from when and where you bought your raw materials, even who you bought the raw material from, are important information. All your production record that day, did a machine go down and you have to call someone to repair it? So you can troubleshoot. You use your data to determine what could have gone wrong so I can improve on that deficiency or look out for it if it's an abnormality to ensure it doesn't happen again and that you can be now proactive instead of being reactive, right? And of course, we spoke about GMPs already, but GMP compliance helps to protect your brand reputation and is a minimum requirement for supplying places like hotels, supermarkets, restaurants, regional distributors, etc. Of course, we know when you're looking for some of the wider global markets, there are other requirements depending on which territory you're going. If you're going to the USA, we know there are FDA requirements and there are FSMA requirements. We know the Canadian food safety people have their own set of requirements. The EU have their requirements, and a lot of countries in the world following the food. Oh gosh, my poor brain, FSSC 22,000, food safety um, certification, and there's ISO 22,000 as well. So you have different levels of standards. Of course, implementing these standards or these practices, sometimes these getting certified by these requires you to have a certain amount of resources to be able to maintain them. Because you don't just get a certification and that's it. You have to maintain them. You have to be subject to audits on an annual basis or whatever periodic basis to ensure that you're compliant, right? So these are things that you would look at. And of course, this has to be part of your overall business strategy. In 5 years' time, I want to be HACCP certified. What do I need to start doing from now to ensure that at the end of 5 years, I'm in a position to do it, right? So these are strategies as much as they are requirements. Another area which is important is the application of what we call lean techniques or lean processing. Lean has to do a lot with waste reduction and waste elimination and efficiency improvement. As the subheading says here, do more with less. And it's a process within itself, and there are many lean techniques. Um, the value stream mapping, which I mentioned earlier, is one lean technique that you can apply. But general with lean processing, you start by analyzing the situation. You look at how you can improve it and you do that improvement. You control it with your documents and your records and your feedback. And then you measure afterwards to see where the improvements are. And then you continue the process again. After you measure and it becomes a part of your process, then you do further analysis, further improvement, etc. Now, when a lot of people hear about lean, they think, these are for the big players out in the field. No, but even an SME, MSME here in Jamaica, small processor, can apply the most basic lean techniques. There is one which I like to tell people is a nice introduction to lean, the 5S methodology, which basically is just about facility organization, right? Um, let's say my brain not functioning today, so I'm going to have to look up what 5S means, what the 5S's are, right? Um, it is about organizing a space. So the first S is sort. So you sort out your different areas where your raw materials are received and kept. You sort out where you keep your packaging material, where you keep certain tools, where you keep certain things so that we can always know where it is. Set in order. You make sure it is now done in an orderly manner so we know what a sequence can be to access some of these things. It's part of your flow. Shine is about keeping your equipment and your workspace clean. That's important when it comes to the whole certification thing for GMPs and HACCP, right? At the end of the day, everybody wipe down the machine, everybody sweep up the area, or designated people do it on a rotational basis. You get rid of your waste material in the appropriate way, throw it into a skip so that you don't attract any pest inside the place. Standardize means now it becomes part of your SOP, how you go about sorting, how you're going about shining and everything. And then the last S is sustain. You make that a regular practice and it becomes the norm in which things are done. So 5S again, sort, set in order, shine, standardize, and sustain. And I like to talk about it because that is the easiest 5S method that can be implemented. And some people say, but yeah, why I need to keep a place? I'm not earning no money. But it becomes a foundation now because when everything is in a structured way, it is easier for you to apply and maintain your standard operating procedures. It is easier for you to pinpoint where there are bottlenecks or deficiencies in the system. It is easy to pick up when a machine needs to be serviced because you're using it and cleaning it every day. Then you become intimate with the piece of equipment and you're able to make much quicker and full assessments when there are things off. And of course, ultimately, lean processing and lean technique is about faster throughput and better profit margins at the end of the day when you tie in the other areas which I've spoken about so far, including energy management into that. All right, I know I said we'll take a break, but I'll continue. I think I can keep going on. So next big area and a nice big area for me, exciting area when modernizing or systems is digitization, right? We know going digital is no longer an option. It's how we will compete and sell and grow. And I like to tell people, we have gone digital a long time ago, but we don't realize it. right? Because we do some practices every day, not realizing they're a part of the digital realm and so on. So simple things using organized spreadsheets to track and manage certain things um, have become so standardized now that we don't think about it. But think about that as a foundation, and you want to build on top of what we have been exposed to already. So these are some areas where, in my opinion, digitization delivers the most value. And this is through procurement. So we can now source raw materials through digital platforms, reducing dependency on single suppliers and getting better prices. And not just raw materials, but a lot of your inputs. Um, I know Rada, for example, at one point used to have publish the prices of certain raw materials and so on. Not sure if they still do, but that's a form of that a part of the system of digital procurement. At least you can identify what you should be paying for raw material, where it's available, that type of thing, and use that. But also as a part of connecting to suppliers. We spoke earlier, or I alluded earlier to getting packaging materials, for example. And now, as more people get involved in processing and you develop brands which create some uniqueness in the market, some differentiation, you may want to put your product in a different container from what's available, typically from local suppliers. Now, believe me, it is relatively easy to source bottles, pouches, etc. online. You can get pouches where you provide the supplier with your design and the print on it for you and send you your pouches. You can get jars of different shapes and things which are more unique than the popular offerings and so on. So you can use platforms as these. We see a lot of the Chinese suppliers using certain platforms to put you in touch with manufacturers of equipment and raw materials and so on. So that is becomes part of your digital procurement process. Of course, there's the other side now where you need to ensure that you maintain your records and so on during your own procurement um, activity to ensure that you're doing it consistently and you're getting the best deals possible. Inventory and traceability is another area. And you have a lot of tools now, a lot of them are cloud-based. Um, ERPs or enterprise resource um, planning type software, which can help you to track inventory. Um, So you can monitor earlier we spoke about when you're having recalls and so on. You can go back, and a lot of these are tied into other areas of the operation. So your sales forecast can help you to make up your production plan, right? And your production plan will tell you what the inventory levels are, and that can tie into your sales orders now, so you know what goes out based on what you had projected in terms of your planning and so on. So there are tools here which can be utilized. I will single out any one of them now, but we can share those with you and so on. I don't know if there's anyone who also participated in our digital Jamaica program. You would have been exposed to some of these. And of course, one of the most exciting ones that a lot of people use are digital sales channels, where you can now sell your products directly to consumers and buyers through e-commerce platforms, social media, and digital marketplaces. Right? I know a lot of people now are utilizing Instagram to not just promote their brands and their products, but to actively sell as well as a marketing platform. Even WhatsApp as well, and with their business product, have e-shops on them. So you can sell on it. You can set up your own customized website. Um, what I like to caution people about this part of the digital um, realm is that your backend must be in the real world, not in the virtual world now. So when someone places an order through a digital channel, you have all your logistics systems in place to package, label, and ship off to that person in the quickest possible time. And we know the back end is not always the easiest, especially here in Jamaica, and some of the limitations we may have in terms of moving to some other third countries. But there are options available, and people have been using them very effectively to get their products out and think, right? But it does help you to manage much easier. It helps you to keep track. And this is one thing about digital, going digital or digitizing, is that it almost automatically builds in record collection in there. So you have a lot of data that you can now analyze. You have tools that can help you to analyze this data for you to make better decisions on your operations and your product, your production levels, and so on. And of course, another big area complementing the sales are your digital financial records. As we said, we started out with Microsoft Excel and so on, but now you have software like QuickBooks or Wave that are now more accessible to small businesses, and you have a whole bunch of them out there, right? And these can help you to create all of the financial trail that your when you're ready to produce your auditing statements and so on, you can pull that information down from QuickBooks and so on. So you can do your invoicing from it. You can run your procurement through it. So everything goes through a QuickBooks, for example, or any other accounting software. And all the data is there now to help you to be more prepared to ensure that you have as many records as possible to make decisions and for you to attract some kind of um, investment. So let's look at a simple way in which we can start, right? So as I said, you don't need to have a big enterprise software or a big ERP type software to go digital. So I mentioned WhatsApp Business, which streamlines customer communication and order management, right? Easy to get feedback from there and to communicate with persons. Google Sheets or Wave, right? Financial tracking and basic bookkeeping. And Google Sheets is just like a cloud version of Microsoft Excel. Canva, which is a powerful tool, and have some graphic designer wondering if they're going to get replaced. No, but no, I'm not worried about them. We still have good designers, so come use them. But you can use Canva now to help to build professional product branding and marketing materials. Canva has tons of templates for you to design your flyers and your promotional material and so on. That allows you to respond much quicker now from a marketing perspective and create things. Obviously, I would still tell you consult a trained graphic designer who now has the eye and can help you to configure your material to be as professional as possible. Instagram and Facebook shops and Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that, we all know about and see how persons are taking advantage of that and benefiting from that. And then there are other back-end things now, which such as Trello or Asana, which are team task management and production scheduling type software. So it helps to identify who should do what, when they should do it. Everyone is in continuous communication with each other. And Trello and Asana are wonderful tools for doing that. So any given day, you can know as a manager of your organization, you know who is assigned to do what, where are they in completing that, and if there are any challenges or bottlenecks, what they are, and they are highlighted very quickly so those can be resolved and so on and lead to efficient operations. So these are just an idea of some tools that can be utilized. Now, here in the summary, I have that small digital steps can create big results. And some information I found that shows that those who go down the digital way to to digitize your sales channel can report an average of 25 to 35% increase in customer reach within the first year. So you're reaching more people than you would with your non-digital ways of relying on word of mouth or some other form of promotion, which may not reach your entire market that you're targeting. Like I mentioned, we had the digital, and I think we probably still have a little bit still going on with our Digital Jamaica program, which is about digital readiness, particularly tailored for Jamaican MSMEs, including agro-processors like yourselves here. And so coming up to the final part now, which is about financial strategies for modernization. Because I'm sure in the back of your mind, everything you hear me talk about, this I'm going to need money, new equipment, new digital software, I'm going to pay a subscription for them and all of that. It's going to need money. So let's talk about some of that right here now, what strategies you can put in place to help to modernize or help to turn your modernization vision into a funded executable plan. So I'm not telling you I'm technical, I'm not financial, so I not going to write all the balance sheet and all that thing for you, just giving you the pathway. Off the bat, we need to understand that financing is available to you if you are prepared and ready, right? And locally, there are many investment channels or funding channels, let me call them that, which are standing ready to assist you, but you know the hurdles you have to jump over and in order to access that. So the key is you presenting a credible, well-documented business case that demonstrates repayment capacity and growth potential. So your production capacity, you should be able to demonstrate what your capacity is, how much you can output out of your system, what the demand for your products are, where the markets are, and you put a dollar value to that, that this is what persons want from my product, and that translates to X million dollars, and you show the projections, and that makes your plan a lot more credible in terms of accessing funds. So what do the lenders typically look for? Shrunk it down to these four areas. Clean financial records. I have here 2 to 3 years of income statements, but typically they want to see your most recent income statements, cash flow records, and your tax filings and everything else to ensure that you're compliant as well. Have your TCC if needed, or your TRN and your business registration, all of that kind of thing. And building up these records through digital bookkeeping makes it easier to get all your statements and your cash flow records especially available and presentable, so that if you're calling an accountant to assist you to put it together, they have all the information there already, and their job is much easier. Obviously, having a credible business plan and knowing what your business model is like is also very helpful, because you want to be able to articulate what you'll be using the loan for, to get equipment or material or whatever purpose, what return on investment is expected to be, and how will you service your repayments through projected revenues, right? So you want to ensure that those are articulated as clearly as possible in real terms, that will convince a lender. And when we talk about lender, we're also including in there those who give grants, not just loans, but grants. So even though repayment may not be a part of it, at least there's the assurance that whatever grant funding you get will translate to real growth in your business and contribution to um, economic growth. In some cases, you may need collateral or guarantees of some way to access funding. And I know this varies quite a bit, and it depends on who you are seeking funding from. And of course, market evidence in the forms of purchase orders, supply agreements, or contracts or market assessment demonstrate real demand and reduce lender risk perception. So the more real world evidence that you provide will make it much easier for you to be given attention in terms of access financing. But you need to ensure that you have the information, you have it consistently, try not to have any gaps. Sometimes that happens where, oh, boy, I lost a record for the last 6 months or for the last year. So I have to try and build everything back from scratch and make assumptions and that type of thing. Going or using digital tools can mitigate against these things happening in many cases. So you want to ensure that you also maintain your records safely. There's a new growing area. This is where some donors are now looking at what they call green finance, right? Or green or climate financing and a lot of this happening through different Caribbean regions, right? The IDB, Inter-American Development Bank, particulars, and the Caribbean Development Bank, who are based in Barbados, typically have programs like this where you can get funding for solar voltaic and battery storage systems, energy efficient equipment, water recycling and waste water reduction, organic and sustainable certified production systems as just a few areas, but different areas in which you can um, access some funding. It's not very easy. A lot of these, though, it requires that you have extensive information, like I showed on the previous slide, to demonstrate that you are in a position to access these, that you have demonstrated your readiness to access these, and it will make it much easier for you to access some of these funding. So typically, you also want to look at some kind of roadmap or here as a phase investment plan, what you want to do over a particular period of time. So a suggested pathway here is that in the first 6 months, you want to hit the ground, do your audits, document your processes, start digitizing your financial records, and identifying priority investments. What do I need investment in? I need a new machine, which is more efficient than the one I have, or to replace one that I have, which isn't working, or one that I don't even have at all right now, but would make a big difference to my operations, right? Then the second phase, you look at quick wins that you can do fairly easily. Can you do any equipment upgrade right now, right? Even if it's changing out a motor from an old efficient motor to a more energy efficient motor, an inverter motor on that piece of equipment. Can I start installing any energy efficiency measures, right? Could be replacing all the light bulbs in the facility or reducing the reliance of artificial light by having bigger windows, clearer windows, skylights, that type of thing. You apply for some initial financing from some program that may be coming up. And here, financing, I should point out, may not necessarily take the form of giving you funds, giving you money, but it could be in the form of a piece of equipment or raw materials or packaging materials that you can get without you having to pay for it. And obviously, you want to be training staff as well. And this second phase is between 6 and 18 months being suggested here, but you can determine your own timeline based on your own ability to be responsive to some of these. And then the third phase is about scaling up between 18 and 36 months, is where you add robust renewable energy systems, achieve compliance certification, expanded digital sales channels, and access export markets. And then the fourth phase, beyond 36 months, is to leverage track records for larger capital investment, strategic partnerships, and regional or international market expansion. So based on this plan, you can see not everything going to happen immediately. So start with the low-hanging fruits, those which are achievable immediately without any big investment, some of which don't require any capital injection at all, whether from you or anyone else. Because it's about looking at your systems, knowing where your bottlenecks are, doing all the audits to highlight all of these, coming up with a plan how to address them. And then you implement the rest of the steps here. Now, at this point, I want to introduce into the conversation of one, I'm going to call it a financial opportunity, although they're not giving any money. But the JBDC has recently been engaged through with UNIDO through their the full name of the project funding is called the Strengthening Competitiveness and Resilience of MSMEs in Jamaica's Agro-Industrial Value Chains. We call it UNIDO Japan funded project for short, because the funding of this particular project through UNIDO comes from the government of and people of Japan. So they're making available to our local MSMEs a variety of support areas, including support for technology adaptation, which means you have the ability to get modern equipment, upgrading your quality and operations infrastructures, and some amount of business development and so on, tailored for Jamaican SMEs. So JBDC is working with UNIDO and government of Japan to implement this project to assist our MSMEs. Now, what does this mean in simple language? They're offering technical assistance and training on production systems, different production systems and methodologies, quality and food safety compliance support, digital tools and business management coaching, access to finance facilitation and business plan development. Note, I said access to finance facilitation and business plan development, and marketing linkages and value chain support. So you'll be able to get training, you'll be able to get perhaps some equipment and some technology support, and you get some business management coaching and preparation, some of the stuff I just mentioned, to be able to go and access other funding. But there are some tangibles coming out of this where you can get equipment, etc. So who is eligible? I hope everybody in the room here is eligible, and I do hope some of you have already applied. But it's open to agro-processors across the value chain, and I think it even goes beyond just agro-processors, but those involved in some agribusiness, converting agricultural raw materials, which include wooden products and so on. But typically, if you're making condiments, beverages, snacks, you're doing root crops, fruits and vegetables, or any form of processing of any product, you are eligible. And the deadline for acceptance of applications is the 15th of June, which I think is towards the end of this week. So if you haven't yet, please do. How do you apply? You can visit the JBDC's website um, and search for the project name. It's on our homepage. When you scroll down, you'll see strengthening competitiveness and resilience of MSMEs in Jamaica's agro-industrial value chain, and it provides some more background information there. You download the application form, you complete it, and you submit it before the 15th of July. And from there, they will make a determination of the successful applicants. As you can imagine, projects like these have limited resources. I'm not sure how much it is now, or if there is a cap on number of persons who can benefit, but all that can be shared. And I'm encouraging everyone here, if you have not yet done so, to please submit your applications, and we can provide between ourselves and the UNIDO office here in Jamaica, can provide some guidance in completing the form if there are areas which you are not fully clear about, right? And wrapping up now, for a more resilient, a more competitive, and resilient future, these are some of the things that I am suggesting that you focus on. Lowering your costs, which includes being energy efficient and having lean operations by having identified those areas which do not add value to your operations, so that you can reduce the cost per unit of your product, right? Having better products through consistent quality, and this builds brand loyalty and retail trust by having some kind of system in place, whether it is GMP, HACCP, or any other. Looking at the requirements of new markets, again, is tied to certification and compliance. This will open the door to export and premium channels for your products. And stronger businesses through the use of digital records and financial discipline, so that you can attract investment and growth capital for your businesses. And so just some key takeaways in wrapping up now. These are practical takeaways as well. Start with an honest audit. You can't improve what you haven't measured. You want to ensure you can map your processes and costs before spending on technology. So be honest with yourself. Don't shortchange yourself and say, yeah, man, I need it, when you really don't. Or say, no, I'm quite fine. My machine is good enough, when you need to do some replacement or grading. So start with an honest audit. As mentioned earlier, the JBDC team can help you throughout all of these steps. Tackle energy costs early. And although I think it is something you have to done gradually over time, you want to start as early as possible, through at least conservation and efficiency upgrades, right? Change out the lighting, change out the motors of certain things, and so on, right? Once you're on the path, then it can open door for green financing for you to take on, financing, so make you more energy and climate resilient. Go digital incrementally. Start with the affordable tools. Build your digital trail to unlock better financing and bigger markets, right? Get finance ready. So have your records in place, have a clear plan, have market evidence through purchase orders, or any tangible demand that you have for your products. Ensure that you have consistent records from all your receipts of everything you purchase. What goes through the business is properly captured and documented so that you are clear about where you are performing from a financial perspective and so on. And then the fifth takeaway is to put in your application for the UNIDO Japan project for agro-processors. You're going to get free technical support. You're going to get support in other areas that can accelerate the growth of your business and put you on the modernization journey so that you can be much more competitive in your offerings. And so I'm leaving you now with these action items I want you to do this week. Request the business assessment. So contact us at JBDC so we can put you onto the project team. Well, before we even go there, you need to apply, right? So apply to the project. Once we determine who, then we can talk about the business request. So this is probably not a this week one, but for this week, I want you to apply. Start getting your financial records in place. If you don't have it yet, which I hope everyone has, is a dedicated business bank account and start looking at your digital bookkeeping today. As I said, even a simple spreadsheet comes as a start. Start scanning using your phone to scan all your records, your receipts, and so on. Keep them in a particular folder on your laptop or your phone or wherever you keep your digital information that can be accessed and chronologize, so you know which receipt come first and all of that. And then I want you to go to your production floors, no matter how small it is, could be your kitchen, walk through your production floor and write down one process that wastes the most time, the most material or money, which is the biggest bottleneck in your operation. So this is where you're going to start with that one area which you think is wasting time and money on the production of your product, and then you make a note, and then we decide how to strategize, how to eliminate that waste, how to improve it, and things, right? So every transformation starts with a single deliberate step. And the time for you guys now to start modernize is right now. JBDC stands committed to helping you to be on this journey. So feel free to call us. I'm encouraging you to apply for for the you need a project, and then we will see you on that journey. So wrapping up, I think I've managed to hold up throughout. I hope I was able to impart some information to you, and I am now open to questions. So, Samsia, over you to moderate that part.
Thank you so much, Colin, and thank you for fighting through the flu and the power cut. Just reminding our attendees this morning, I have posted a feedback form in the chat, and I just ask you to fill that out for us just to give us some feedback on this morning's session. I've also posted the website www.jbdc.net, where you can find the information on the application for the UNIDO project if it is that you are interested in applying. I am not seeing any questions in the chat, and I'm also not seeing any hands up. So it appears, Mr. Colin, that you were okay. Someone says they have a question.
All right, wonderful.
Jamaican herbs. That's the name. All right. Jamaican herbs. If you could just put up your hand. In the meantime, I'm gonna take Dora Barrett. Dora, I am unmuting you, so you may go ahead.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Go
Loud and
ahead.
clear, Dora.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Porter and Miss corporate communications for facilitating us this morning. I am also with the flu and I had to push through as well. But one of the questions I had was, you mentioned earlier, you used the example of 5 years to get the HACCP certification, to say, for example, it's a 5-year goal. Is it that the process is that tedious for like micro-sized business?
No, it's not. It's just a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be 5 years. I said these are just my suggestions because different people are going to be at
Mm-hmm.
different levels. What HACCP requires for you to do is to start documenting your processes and so on. So I like to tell people before you document something, you need to understand what you're documenting and ensure that you're documenting the right steps, the best steps that you use it in your process. So if you can do it in a relatively short space of time, fine, you go ahead. I just kind of give that as a suggestion because HACCP requires certain kind of, or any one of these quality systems require that you have a robust baseline working with. That all your let me call it the frame of mind and the mindsets that you have and all the persons working with you have are properly aligned to certain best practices. So in order of importance, I would say first, implement good manufacturing practices, GMPs, which is not a certified certification level, but just simple things. How do I manage preventing pests from entering my facility by putting up, um, meshing the windows and doors and so on, putting a proper pest control system in place. Um, how do I keep things clean? What do I use to clean down my equipment and so on? And with the team at JBDC can provide you more details on requirements for GMPs and so on. And then you build on that because a lot of this is a building process, right? You're not gonna be there at the beginning, but it's a process. So if you can do it in less than 5 years, some people may take up to all 10 years, depending on where they are and where their priorities are, to implement some of these activities as well. HACCP requires training. You need to complete certain amount of training and participate in training programs and so on. So it is about understanding where you are now and what you're capable of doing in whatever timeline you may set for yourself.
All right, great. Thank you, Colin. Dora, I noticed that your hand is still up. Is it that you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I had mistakenly muted also. I wanted to open back the mic.
Okay.
Yes, so thank you for that, Mr. Porter. And my next question is, for like myself as a micro business owner that is located in Montego Bay. I know your facility, like your incubators and so, are supposed to be on the eastern part of the island. How is it feasible? Are any of your, what would I say now, processors using your facility that are from this side of the island, micro size specifically?
Can
I
you
don't
give
know
me
if
an
you
idea what
understand my
kind of
question.
products can you give me an idea what products you make, Dora?
Oh, my bad. I do spices. I process spices, powdered spices, so like turmeric, ginger, and so on, and
Okay,
herbs as well.
right. Well, yes, our incubator is located in Kingston, and so from that, you just imagine the practicality or impracticality of you traveling from that western end coming here to process the challenge. But funny enough, after the passage of Hurricane Melissa, when Moby had no power, we had one client who had some orders for Christmas come in, and she made her arrangements to come in to use it for a couple of days to deliver those orders. So when you're back against the wall, people find a way, but understand the practical limitation there. Short of that, and hopefully your little operation is back up and running. No, our team can come and visit you where you are and make whatever set of recommendations that can assist you to ensure that your production is being done as efficiently as and abiding by the necessary standards as much as possible. So, that is the best way I can answer that one. So if you really want to make the sacrifice and come to Kingston, then it's up to you, but you have to work out and figure out all the logistics of getting your raw
The
material.
logistics and everything.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's my final question. Thank you so much. I was planning on visiting the office as today, but the rain. I was
Okay.
planning on visiting the JBDC office as well to speak to a um
The business
developer officer,
officer.
development
Sure,
officer.
man. As
Okay.
soon as the rain eases up and you get over the flu, then you can.
Yes, yes, yes. The
Right.
flu too held me down as well, so I couldn't go. All
Yes,
right.
yes.
So thank you
Yes.
again, Mr. Porter.
Sure.
So Dora, if it's the office in St. James that you're going to visit, I can share a number with you where you can just call and speak with an officer. So that's 953-4477. 953-4477. All right. Thank you so much for your question, Dora. I had seen another hand, mm, but
Maxim.
oh, Maxim. Maxim, do you still want to go ahead with your question?
Yes, I would like to. Regarding that support that the government of Japan is presenting to JBDC and its members, is it with respect to the implementation of Kaizen methods or entire processes of those things? What is the? I'm talking about the little bit technical question, but is that the one what they are trying to offer?
Right. So you mentioned Kaizen methods.
Correct.
Um, they haven't specified, but pretty much any area, I'm sure there'll be some Kaizen and lean manufacturing methods that would be um, introduced to us. Their expertise, their experts will, they haven't yet shared all the details of what this technical support will be, but it pretty much would be any methodology. Um, and I'm sure they're going to be they're slanted towards what Japan has expertise in Kaizen and all these other lean techniques that will be used. But everything would start with an assessment, and they would then determine what it is would be more suitable for your operation.
Noted. And just for everybody in this group right now, Kaizen is a method of small improvements, but it's in a small improvement we see the larger results. So for
Correct.
everybody, they can start, as Mr. Colin was pointing out, to start doing that by yourself to identify small passage of your processes and implementing
Exactly. And yeah, thank you, Maxim. Small continuous improvements over
correct.
time. Yes. Thank you for that.
All right. Thank you very much, Maxim. Mr. Sharp, Carl Sharp, I'm unmuting you. You can go ahead with your question.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
Sharp.
Um, the UNIDO project that you have a deadline for June 15th, is that the same one that had the original deadline for May 15th?
Yes, that's the one. They had extended it. So
Okay.
it's now June 15th.
All righty. Thank you.
All right. So if you have applied already, you're still in good
Well,
standing.
well, I had planned to apply, but unfortunately, the May 15th deadline could not be
Okay.
met.
Right. So
Yeah.
we're giving the opportunity now for others. So please do today if you can.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sharp.
All right. Thank you very much. Jamaican Herbs, I'm going to unmute you because you had your hand up. Do you still have the question?
Yes, I do. I'm not sure if you're am I unmuted?
Yes, you are
Yes.
unmuted. We are hearing you.
Okay. Once again, thank you, supporter, for the presentation. Under the circumstances, being under the weather, and I kind of wish I had this training back in March when I was inspected by Plant Quarantine at my packing house. It's really a good training, and I see that you're very passionate about it. My question is, you mentioned several reporting and auditing that needs to be done. Do you have like samples of those documentation that we could use within the facility, or do we have to come into your facility for the training to get access to it? That's my first question. Second question, as the gentleman mentioned before, I did apply for that unit, that uh, grant funding with a
Right.
deadline of May the 15th. However, I submitted online. I did not receive acknowledgement of my application. No one reached out to me, so I have no idea if it was accepted or you can receive it or not. So I'm not
Um,
sure.
We, we
Colin, let
could,
me just state that, please.
yes.
The UNIDO application actually goes straight through to the UNIDO office. And so we don't get the applications. They
Okay.
are the ones that will reach out to you. So we facilitate the application, but we don't have the information on whether it was received or not.
So another question, do you have you know of anyone that received a response because it might have came back and deleted? So I'm not sure if they did acknowledge it. It might have gone to my junk mail since I'm not familiar with their email address.
Okay, I am unable to say, to be
Okay.
very honest. Yeah.
We probably could find out, but the thing is, they probably, and I'm just making an assumption, I can't speak for you, Nito. They're probably waiting until all applications come in before they start assessing and responding. But even as you mentioned, just getting an acknowledgement that they have received the application, just so you can rest assured that you are in on the list. We probably could follow up with them and let you know. And you applied under the name Jamaican Herbs.
No, under Seven Rivers Tropical.
So repeat it.
Seven, Seven Rivers Tropical.
Seven Rivers Tropical.
Yeah, limited, yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay. We could try and find out for you. With regard to your first question, though, in terms of the audits and so on, um, well, our team can come in and start the assessment for you. But under the project, whatever audit we do now would just be our general audit. It would not be what would be done under the UNIDO program, which will be more in depth and we would have to wait until they determine who the persons benefiting from the grant will be, and then their team come in. But we have a team in-house of agro processors and production engineers and other sets of skills who can um, conduct any basic audit. If you're a client of JBDC, I don't know if you're yet a client or if you're assigned a business officer, you could reach out to them and we could schedule an audit at the appropriate time. So if you're not yet a JBDC client, and for those of you online who are not yet, and although you don't have to be a client for the UNIDO program, I encourage anyone who also needs any other assistance that JBDC offers, you can visit our website and sign up as a client, and someone will reach out to you to onboard you, and then whatever assistance you may need, then they'll take it from there.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Sure.
you. Thank you so much. And just for everyone's benefit, I have placed in the chat our website, www.jbdc.net. You are able to become a client by just going onto the website, scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says become a client, click on it, and you'll be able to complete the process to get assigned a business development officer. So it's relatively easy. All right. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Thank you, Colin, for pushing through and taking us straight to the 2 hour point. I just want to let everyone know Again, I dropped a feedback form in the chat asking you to just complete that for us. And the session was recorded, and so it will be available on our YouTube channel between now and Friday of this week. Addition to that, we have a second part of the Smart Agro Processing series. So on the 23rd of June, we are going to be doing a session titled Agile Resilience in Trade, Strategies to Sustain Productivity in Disruption. And it's a follow up to this morning's session. So look out for the information to register so that you can be a part of that session as well. Thank you so much again for joining us, and have a great rest of the day.